Hey everyone! In this episode, I'm joined by my wonderful friend Rajni. She's a longtime educator in the San Francisco public school system, originally from New York City, and is also a life coach for other teachers. In part one, we talk about her journey of burnout, boundaries, and learning to take care of herself in a system that demands way too much. She shares how her upbringing shaped her, how she found her way into teaching, and what it took to finally say no, not just to others, but to her own patterns of people-pleasing. In part two, things get more personal. Rajni opens up about the loss of her father, her experience with emotional healing, weight loss, and what it's been like to reconnect with her body and her softer side. It's a conversation about self-trust, pleasure, and letting yourself become someone new. Enjoy. Hey you guys, I'm Kristina. This is Say More, a podcast about the kinds of conversations that invite us to go deeper. I'm a therapist, and this is a space for honest reflection on what shapes us, from early unconscious patterns to how we actually change and grow. Some episodes explore theory and ideas, and others are real, reflective talks with therapists and other people I love talking to. People who are on the path or simply curious about growth and healing. At times, I follow what's alive, letting topics emerge from my own life, my guests, from sessions, or from whatever's been coming up lately. If you're drawn to depth without needing perfection and want a space that holds both pain and possibility, you're in the right place. I'm really glad you're here. Let's say more. So we're here with my good friend Rajni. Rajni and I met in 2021. We were doing a life and spiritual training coaching program online during that pandemic. Rajni is a very talented educator in the San Francisco Public School District, and she's also a life coach for educators. So welcome to our pod.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so happy to see you too.
I know, likewise. So Rajni, how is your day going today?
Pretty good. I'm on summer break right now, so my mornings are slower, but I'm still doing my morning routine, it feels like way more relaxed. Like I don't need to get out the door right away.
Well, morning sounds great. Yeah. I'm imagining that's in high contrast to when you're teaching and in school and that type of life flow.
Yeah, I do all the same things that I would during the school year, except now I can extend my workout by 10 minutes, or I can take the dog out for longer than I would and just kind of relax and have breakfast at home, which I don't. It's like I pack my breakfast during the school year at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and then it's like doing all the things, the news, the journaling, the workout, the dog, and then all in like a 2 hour time frame.
Gosh. How is that in terms of self-care? How would you describe it during the school year for yourself?
It took me a really long time I hesitate to use the word perfect, but to really hone that morning routine and make it a habit. And this is something that I try to help my clients and fellow teachers do. It's like the morning routine is so important for setting the tone of your day. It sets up the the tone in your mind as well, right? It lets you like let go of everything that has been happening or did happen the night before or whatever you're carrying. It's really great to start off the day with like a clean slate.
Mhm.
And I do that by doing some affirmations in the morning, just reading some affirmations. I journal and usually do yoga before my workout, spend some time with the dog, and then it's like once the dog and I come back, it's like, okay, boom, getting ready for work. But yeah, I love my morning routine. And I notice that if I skip it or if I skip part of it on a specific day, depending on whatever else is going on, like maybe I need to go in early for a meeting, like maybe I have like a million things in my mind that I have to do that day. And I definitely feel off balance, right?
Mhm.
And it like just adds to the base level stress that's already there. And I'm like, if I can spend 20 or 30 minutes total, taking that away, that base level stress,
Hmm.
it's such a game changer, like going into the work day.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like it's very important and crucial for your mental health just to keep up the level of stress and work and demands of that job. And yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to say about just the demands and pressure of teaching?
I mean, we all know, right? I hope we all know.
Fill
I mean, maybe
us
some,
in, girl.
huh?
Fill us in, girl.
Oh my goodness. It's hard because my summer brain is on right now, which means I don't remember the children's names. If I saw them on the street today, I would be like, I know that person, but like, who are you? Because it's like just completely off, right? Which is part of it, was part of the self care. Because you, I think for me, in order for me to function and actually be good at my job too, and do it with the passion that I want to, and that, our kids and our schools deserve, that I need to have those boundaries, right? And we were talking about boundaries last time, but yeah, it's important to be able to shut off completely. I'm not saying like, yeah, forget that people, but that's just what my brain does. Oh, it's a strategy, and it works.
For sure. Yeah.
You know what it is with teaching even though I'm not a counselor at the school, I'm not a social worker, I'm not getting involved so much with like the one-on-one provider, right? In terms of working with the students, but it's such an emotionally taxing job, right? Because you're having to manage and regulate your own emotions while also being hit with the emotions and whatever else they're going through, of like 30 kids at a time, 30 adolescents, right? So they're like underdeveloped, emotional shit, and which is completely appropriate for their age. But it's like you really have to. My favorite way of describing it is like you have to be like Teflon. You really, it's just like everything has to just slide right off, because if you're not able to do that, definitely you're going to burn out, right? Not only in the long run, but at the end of each day. And also, you're going to get into these power struggles, right? With like a 12-year-old. And then the next day, you're like, what the hell? Why was I getting into this power struggle with this 12-year-old, right?
Yeah.
That, magically knows how to push all your buttons. So it's a lot. Yeah, it's emotionally taxing for that reason, but also probably lots more.
Yeah. And tell me just a little bit about your teaching journey. Like, when did you start that? How did you get interested in that?
Yeah, wow. So I started my career in 2009. And it's interesting, when growing up and through college, I always had jobs working with kids in some capacity, whether it was tutoring or like assisting in classrooms. And I also really loved school when I was a kid. Like, I was a little nerd, like, oh, I go to school. I love all my teachers. And like, I felt so much acceptance from my teachers
Mm.
growing up. And I decided to go into teaching when it's funny, I think it's very common in my culture and in a lot of Asian cultures too, to like, okay, you have three options of career, like doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? Like those are your those are your choices, right? And that are like acceptable from your parents' standards, right? Being a child of immigrants, it's like you have to be successful, and those are the paths that they deem appropriate for success. And once I decided I didn't want to go to med school and be a doctor, I still wanted to do science, study science. So I decided that teaching would be probably the next best thing. I started teaching in 2009, and I had just finished my master's. Like, I went right from my bachelor's to my master's in education, and I started my career in New York City. I was born and raised in New York, and I worked in New York City public schools for 9 years as a high school teacher. And I think my workaholism, my perfectionism, my survivalist mentality of like, I have to just be the best at this no matter what really kicked in.
Mhm.
And I think that there's something to be said for that, especially for early career teachers, when you're earning your tenure and you have to maybe meet some sort of credentialing requirements and you just do really want to get better and improve your practice. But you can't just keep going like that, which is what I was doing, right? Like I was taking on all the roles, all the committees, all the extra shit, staying late at work, like constantly. Work was just like my entire life. So I ended up leaving New York because I was just exhausted. Just like, I can't take it anymore. I had gotten a dog and it's not easy to have a dog in New York. And so I moved out to California and I took a job uh, as it was this interesting role. It was part instructional coach, part teaching. But in reality, it was teaching a full course load and also coaching to new teachers. And that was
Wow.
just insane. Just flat out insane. Like, there's no way I had any time to do most of the things. And of
Mhm.
course, I burnt out, right? I was completely burnt out. I left education for about a year. And during that year, I took like a corporate job. Pandemic happened. I got laid off. I'd been unemployed for the first time in my life. I'm like, I can't work. I don't work. What is this? um,
Yeah.
but it was an opportunity for me to just stop,
Mm.
and regroup. I had completely hit bottom. So it's just like I needed to come back from that, and I I think that was my first like really big bottom. And I think I've had a couple since then, but not so much with the job. More it's like, and I realized that I have to focus on other things too. Like I can be really good at my job and be an awesome teacher. And I can also like focus on myself too. And
Mhm.
the two are not completely separate.
Yeah. So the process of becoming a teacher sounds like it was driven by kind of this family system and the culture that you came from, like very like you got to be a doctor, a lawyer. Um, what was the other one?
Usually engineer.
Engineer. That's right. Influencer. And then getting burnt out, trying to be the best, the having perfectionistic tendencies, overworking. I'm imagining how you teach and how you live your life has taken time to figure out what that balance looks like for yourself. Um, where do you feel like you're at now with that work-life balance?
I guess mid pandemic in fall of 2020, I went back to teaching. And it was the year that they were doing distance learning. And that structure worked really well for me because I wasn't physically in the room with the
Right.
obviously for health reasons nobody could be, but it really worked because I wasn't picking up all their emotional baggage. I was going to say picking up all their shit. I don't know if you want to use emotional baggage or picking up all their shit because that was what I really wanted to say.
Yeah.
But it's true. And anyway, so coming when we returned in person, my boundaries were really, really strong. And I think having all that time to myself and to really figure out my identity outside of work and to develop myself personally outside of my professional identity really
Hmm.
helped to create those like really strong boundaries. And I can go to work, I can leave work there and come home and do me. Um, so at first it was very rigid boundaries. I had set incredibly rigid boundaries,
Hmm.
not only with, when it comes to students. I mean, I always had, professional boundaries, of course, with students, but it took me some time to open up and even want to engage and invest in relationships with my colleagues. And I think it was necessary for me to have those really, really rigid boundaries at first. And in the past few years, I've flexed my boundaries a little bit, because I moved to a city where I didn't really know anyone and I really wanted to have a community.
Uh-huh.
And I'm really glad that I chose to flex those boundaries because what it allowed me to do was take the opportunity to pivot in coaching,
Uh-huh.
specifically to working with teachers.
Uh-huh.
And I started doing like teacher wellness workshops at my school. So, doing a couple times a year, doing a training for the teachers, like just some of this self care habits, strategies, tools, emotional regulation tools, some of the spiritual coaching stuff that we had learned when you and I were in that certification program,
Uh-huh.
and bringing it to a group of teachers, right? Who were all different ranges, ages, probably struggling with similar things that I had struggled with for so long.
Uh-huh.
So I started to really use my life as an example. I would try things out and be like, oh, let me try this like tool. Let me try this thing. And that's sort of how I developed this program at my own school. But going back to your question, it did take time, right? For me to be able to establish the boundary and know when it was okay to flex, when it was okay to put it back up in order to preserve myself and my time and my energy. I guess my transition would be learning to play and have fun, right, in my life. I feel like I used to be way more serious, or at least I come off way more serious. And just inviting the playfulness to come in and the risk taking, which is hard, but that's where the growth is, I guess.
You looked very averse when you just said risk taking. You went, "Ugh."
It's terrifying.
Tell me more about that. Say more, Rajni.
Yeah, I feel like I've been doing a lot of things that are scary. And it was like a slow evolution throughout this year. So in addition to building community at my workplace and just in general, meeting new friends eh, outside of work, I I don't know how to introduce this, whatever. I'm not going to go there. Never mind.
Just talk. Like we can just talk. So,
Or outside of just my school, right? Um, which feels a little risky because in order for me to do that, like I have to like put myself out there and be like, hey, I have this thing, and that's easy to do. Um, so I don't know if I really want to include that on there because I feel like I'm talking about it a lot. I don't know, like coaching a lot. Is that okay?
I mean, I can ask questions. Like, I'm interested in kind of like your personal process around like why you're doing what you're doing. I'm curious about like, in your process of like recovering your boundaries and getting to the point where you're more open to put yourself out there and like have fun, take risks. Like, what do you think you were protecting for so long? And like, what allowed you to kind of open up more in this phase?
Why is that question so deep?
Yeah, I'm just curious what you felt like you were protecting with your boundaries for so long.
Mm. Part of it was fear that I would revert back into this workaholism and just becoming enmeshed with everything at work and losing myself and losing that sense of peace and emotional distance that I had built for work or from work.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that ties like beautifully with boundaries. I mean, I think that's what we are all protecting ourselves from, whether we're aware of it or not. Um, and it can be like a pretty rigid process. I know for myself of feeling like overwhelmed and, kind of suddenly aware that something's not like healthy for me. It's destabilizing me. It's not productive. It's not conducive. It's not like you just said protecting my peace in a way. So those boundaries, I think, in the initial part of discovering how we do those can be pretty rigid, which maybe kind of speaks to the level of like seriousness. And I know for me, and you can speak as well, but like that internal process of beginning to set boundaries where I was either enmeshed or lost my sense of self was very scary and came with a lot of like heaviness and guilt and like really needing a lot of support around kind of like why I'm doing the thing I'm doing. And like it's a struggle to get into that practice. And then I think it eases up over time, which is maybe what you're saying about flexing and being more flexible around those boundaries.
Yeah. I think for me, the flexibility came in when I felt secure that I was going to be okay.
Yeah.
And the more I practiced with a flex here and there, and then reflected and was like, actually, that felt okay. And I was still able to have time to myself or like go out on the weekend or see a friend or do all the things or, God forbid, do something after work. And I realized like I still had energy for myself and my own life, even if
Uh-huh.
I did flex a boundary. So that gave me the confidence to know that
Mm,
I can flex and be okay.
yeah.
And everything's not going to crumble if I like say yes a little more often than I would,
Uh-huh.
when it comes to something at work, for example.
What do you think allowed you to get to that point where you're feeling more confident or maybe trusting yourself more with those?
Just trial and error, really. And asking myself the question, when I was going to take something else on, like, what's my intention behind, wanting to do this?
Uh-huh.
And if the intention was really about, like, I know how to fix this versus like, I think I could be helpful here and it could benefit everyone. And also weighing out, like, okay, what's the emotional investment for me in whatever this is? What's the emotional investment? What's the time investment? What does that look like? How will I feel during, before was before, right? But how would I feel during and after? And kind of weighing it out that way. And if it did come out in my favor or at least equal, be like, okay, I'm going to consider doing this thing.
Yeah.
And I think I know, I know a lot of teachers don't always do that because we're so under resourced in public schools that teachers often feel the burden of like, well, I just have to do it because no one else is going to do it and it's not going to get done and it's going to be worse and it's for the kids and all of the guilt. Really, it's about guilt, right? Like you mentioned, like I just have to do it, right? So we end up taking on more and more without having that conversation with ourselves. Like, is this a safe risk for me to take, right? For me to do this thing.
Yeah. Kind of like sounds like through experience weighing the pros and cons and kind of stepping back and being a little bit more rational or having that perspective to weigh the pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious if you see a pattern among teachers kind of with that fix it like or that like helper maybe role and how that plays out and if that's connected to the past. Is that a familiar role that you found yourself in?
I think it is a what's very common for sure among teachers. And for me, I think it stems from probably very deeply, it stems from this like need to be needed, right?
Mm,
Because if I'm not needed, then what happens to me, right? Like, am I going to have a job? Are people going to like me? Am I going to, not be a productive member of whatever team it is?
mhm.
Or how are people going to see me if I'm not just taking on all these things? It's connected to some fear of abandonment, right? If I'm not absolutely essential to this process, then where does that leave me?
Right. So the need to be needed is kind of what drives that Sounds like almost like a survival pattern.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think for me, that's where it stems from. Maybe it could be different for others, but that's my guess.
Mm-hmm. And so the process has been stepping out of that burnout cycle,
Yeah,
needing to be needed. That just seems like a really big thing that I'm sure a lot of people could relate to.
it is. I'm sure it's that a lot of people can relate to it too. Um, mm, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what to say.
that's okay.
Oh,
I've,
there's this right now. I'm on this path of trying new things, right? I think specifically in my personal life, my I just want to, I don't know, I just want to do things differently. And I want to, I've been very intentionally lately trying to, I don't even know how to say it, trying to like bring out my feminine side. And, at work, it's really hard to be feminine because I have to be the authority figure in the classroom. And I don't think my kids like see me as like a female even.
yeah,
Maybe my colleagues don't even either. I have no idea. But I've really been intentionally trying to, I'm like, I want to be a little bit softer. I want to be like a little bit more feminine. And like, for me, that involves like a lot of different colors and I don't know, soft fabrics and things like that. And like playing around with my makeup and doing things like that, that I just, I don't always get to do. And it's funny, me and my colleague slash friend, we call this summer Rajni because
oh,
summer Rajni comes out and I'm like a totally different person. And I'm like, how can
she's ready to play.
exactly exactly. So I'm like, how can I like really access my feminine energy? I've been trying to do that for I don't know, a month and a half.
Why did I think you were gonna say like 25 years since I started my career?
I wish I'd been trying to do that for 25 years. Maybe I would be better at it now.
There's never too late. I love that you're doing it now, and it's really fun to see you like come alive and
I think too that, my weight loss journey back to my body has helped so much. I know we talked about this offline, but in the past almost 2 years, I've lost 40 pounds and I feel like I'm in my 20s again.
mm,
Like I was not this size. Maybe I was a little bit smaller than this in my 20s, but I was not anywhere close to this size since then. And my goal with the getting healthy, working on my body was really around building my own confidence about myself, about the way that I look. So I think once I was able to like hit that mark of 40, I was like, whoa, and 40 years old last year too. But it's like something about the fours or the 40s, right? I feel like I'm embracing this new energy that I have that came with all of that hard work. And because it did give me the confidence, I'm like, well, now I'm just going to like try new shit, and take the risks, right? And
yeah.
be like, yeah, I'll be okay. And if something happens, if there's a negative consequence, like I'll deal with it. Um, yeah. So that's kind of where my energy shift has happened recently.
Yes, I love that so much. I'm really happy that you're talking about it. We're going to be back for a quick break. I would love to talk about that if it keeps coming up and how that in and of itself, I think is just like a beautiful example of a transition and how you're really getting more in touch with yourself. Like, because I see it, it's like so apparent and so beautiful.